Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and I have returned with Comic Uno episode 198. And that show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. I go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week and everything in between. So let's get started. What was worst pick of the week? I had 17 books this week, so it was a little less than usual, but usually I have an average of 20. But let's get into this. And number 17 was, sadly, Cable issue 2. Once again, just doesn't seem like this book has a lot of substance. It feels like an opening of an action movie with all the great action sequences, but all we know is that Cable's time traveling, and these people from the past have weapons that are definitely more high-tech than they should have. And that's the whole story. The artwork is good. That is why I gave it 2 stars. I did like the artwork a lot, and I liked the action of the book, but I just kind of wish there was a bigger point to the plot to make me want to stick for more for Cable. So Cable issue 2 for me gets 2 stars. Still trying to stick with it, but it's kind of been the same thing since issue 1, that there isn't a lot of plot here, sadly. But hopefully that picks up with future issues. Now moving on to number 16, which is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 29. A lot of aspects of what I don't like about the current Amazing Spider-Man is in this issue. We have a Superior Octopus, or Superior Spider-Man. I think his name is now Superior Octopus. Dr. Octopus has a little monologue with, or dialogue with Peter, with Spider-Man, and that's kind of it. We also have a tie-in with Secret Empire, so Hail Hydra aspects of the story come into Parker Industries. So that's pretty much the whole story, though. I don't love it. I wasn't very entertained by it. Artwork's solid, but I just want a different direction for this story. I feel like there's been a lot of lag in the recent issues. So The Amazing Spider-Man issue 29 is definitely not a must-read Secret Empire tie-in. It hardly ties into Secret Empire, so I'm going to give this 2 stars, and that is number 16. Now we're moving on to number 15, a book that hasn't been this low in a while. But this issue just was a filler, and that is X-Men Blue issue 6. Yeah, this issue, the artwork wasn't very good. The colors clashed. The pencils were not very detailed. Facial expressions were off. Their lips kind of looked weird in the issue, especially Jean in the beginning of this issue. Like, their facial expressions looked weird. I just was not feeling the artwork for this one. And yeah, the story was pretty generic. It's just that the X-Men want to party for a little while. They do. They find these people selling the mutant drug, the mutant hormone gene drug, which obviously we've seen before, and they meet up with a group of people that might train them to be ninjas. It's a strange issue. The only reason I kind of brought it up past like Amazing Spider-Man and Cable is that there's somewhat of a plot and characters interact with each other a bit more solidly than Spider-Man and Cable, but still a lackluster issue. So X-Men Blue issue 6 gets 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 14, which is Secret Empire issue 5. Still the same thing going on with this book. I think you either love this event or you hate it, and I'm more on the hate side. I just haven't felt invested in it, even though there's small parts I enjoyed of this issue more than previous issues, like the end with the Hulk. I kind of like the Thor stuff in it, and of course Ant-Man talking to Cassie was great. But I feel like it's kind of all over the place. There's so many characters they're trying to bring into this story. The artwork is very dark for what the story's providing. Even though I like Sorrentino's artwork, it's hard to get into the story because of the darkness of the coloring. So Secret Empire issue 5 gets 2.5 stars. There's some glimmer of hope for me, but still not a very entertaining event overall, for me personally. Now moving on to number 13, which is Action Comics issue 982, which is a book, well, really a story arc that's just been going on forever with this fan serviceness of all these Superman villains that we know and love. Cyborg Superman, who else is in this? Eradicator, you know, the list goes on, of all of these Superman villains coming together and wanting to fight Superman. Superman's blind in this issue from the cliffhanger. Lois and John are trying to help him out, but they kind of disappear in this issue because Clark's like, no, run, and they run. And then he gets the help of his Superman family, which was cool. I liked that aspect, but it was just a cliffhanger, and we already knew that was going to happen through solicit, so there wasn't anything really new provided here. And even though I still really like the art style, I feel like this wasn't as neat as we usually get. Some of the facial expressions felt very rushed. Like over here, I felt like some of the pencils felt rushed compared to, you know, what we normally get with this artwork. So overall, Action Comics issue 982 gets 2.5 stars. Still not very impressed with this arc overall, but I am excited to see the Super Family in the next issue. Alright, moving on to number 12, and this book is actually a bit higher than it's been, and that is Detective Comics issue 959, where I liked parts of this story, especially Zatanna and Bruce. I really liked their relationship and how they could highlight how long they've been friends for and why Bruce was friends with Zatanna and how close they are. So that aspect, really liked it. I liked the dialogue between them, but everything else wasn't very interesting. Still, the villain's very hollow. The dialogue sometimes just goes on and on forever, and it's just not as clean as I want it to be. And then even just all the other characters I wasn't very interested in besides Zatanna and Bruce, because I think they're the ones who had a full story here. So Detective Comics issue 959 gets 3 stars. Artwork is solid, but still not where I want this book to be. Alright, moving on to number 11, a filler issue, which is Batgirl issue 12, where Batgirl is helping out this crew of people to find a ghost, and obviously she knows it's not a ghost, and she finds out it's this girl who's really smart who brought her body into this parallel world. So that's what this ghost is all about. Batgirl saves the day, and that's pretty much it. It's a very skippable issue. It's fun for the most part. If you enjoy Barbara, pick it up, but it's not a must-read issue by any means, even though the artwork is pretty clean, which I enjoyed that aspect. So Batgirl issue 12 gets 3 stars. Moving on to number 10, which is The Defenders issue 2, which I like this issue. I think there's some interesting character interactions between Jessica and Luke, and then Jessica, Daredevil, and Iron Fist. But still, this book is not really them being a team, which is kind of weird, and it's slow in that aspect, but the artwork's solid, and the Punisher ending was kind of cool if you like the Netflix shows, so it's still not exactly where I want the series to be, but it's entertaining in the end. So, The Defenders issue 2 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 9. Let's see, number 9 is Jean Grey, issue 3. And I didn't really know what to think of this issue because I loved the art. There was some really great action in this issue, and it's cool that they had it all underwater. I thought the artwork was really good. The inner monologue with Jean was really good. And I liked the ending that Namor was able to give some feedback to Jean. But the problems I had, I don't really like Namor, so I think you have to be a fan of his character to enjoy this team up, because obviously it's a lot about him. And B, the bigger problem is that the story is not really going anywhere. It's very much like Villain of the Week formula, except it's like Team Up of the Week formula for this. So it's Jean teaming up with someone every issue, and I kind of want this to be Jean's title and not just her going to people saying, so, what do you think about the Phoenix? and being like an interviewer. So I hope there's a better direction for Jean Grey, and I am getting worried with every issue that it's just gonna be the same thing with every issue except a different team up, where next week, or next 2 weeks, is going to be Psylocke. So we will see where that goes. Anyways, Jean Grey issue 3 gets 3.5 stars, and that was number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is Jughead issue 16. And this is just a fun comedy issue. It's every girl in town falling in love with Jughead because of Sabrina's spell, and the boys, Reggie, Archie, and Jughead, and Sabrina, trying to fix the situation. And both Mark Waid and I guess Ian Flynn also writes this. Yeah, they both write it, but Derek Charm's artwork is so good here with the comedic timing. So really great collaboration between the script and the writer and the artist here, because the comedy really was on point with a lot of the panels where I chuckled out loud, which is exactly what you want to see from a Jughead book. So overall, the plot and, is kind of cliche of a spell, you know, making someone fall in love. It's something we've seen before, but it's still a fun issue and a cool comedy issue if you're looking for that. So Jughead issue 16 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 7, which is Edge of Venomverse, issue 1. Now, as a Laura fan, I enjoyed this. I liked that we got to see the return of NYX. I love that series, and I'm glad people didn't forget about it. So it's cool to see Kitten again, and a different relationship between them and Laura. So that was cool, and Laura being Venom was pretty cool to watch. The artwork was solid. It fit this kind of grittier tone they were going for. It was very much felt like a horror movie was unfolding. But did it actually bring anything new to Laura's character? No. Did it bring anything new to Venom? Not really. So if you're looking for that, I think you're going to be a little disappointed. But if you like Laura and just kind of want a fun story, I think you'll enjoy it. So Edge of Venomverse issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 6, which is Spider-Gwen issue 21, and I did get the Mary Jane variant, so I was very happy about that. So I enjoyed this issue though, but only to an extent. I liked the Harry and Gwen interactions. I still think that's a lot of fun, and I love their relationship. But the story still feels very repetitive. Not a lot of things happen here. We still have Gwen dealing with her interior struggle of, what do I do? Do I listen to Matt? Do I listen to myself? Do I listen to Harry? You know, she's definitely much in inner turmoil in this issue. And then Matt Murdock, I felt like kind of had a boring section here, or at least a slower section, where Matt is playing behind the scenes to make Gwen's father's, or, you know, George's life even more miserable in jail, and that's kind of all that happens here. So it's a bit of a slower storyline, but, you know, as always, Spider-Gwen has some interesting character interactions and great artwork, so that's why it's a bit higher than the other books. So Spider-Gwen issue 21 gets 3.5 stars. Moving on to top 5 now. So number 5 is, and of course one always falls every episode, the paper falls. Anyways, Elektra issue 5. I am sad the series is ending. I didn't expect that. I guess I wasn't really following the solicits. I thought Elektra was still continuing, and the only ones that got canceled from that Daredevil run was Kingpin and Bullseye. But I guess Elektra's ending too, but this was the series I enjoyed and I thought was the strongest. But it ended well. I liked that. It was Elektra helping her friend, and it was a really cool video game styled issue. Like, look at these pages. She's like in this like Tron-like costume, and it was just fun. And that's what I liked about this issue. And it ended on the same note of all Elektra books, which is like, I have to go back to my normal life. So if you've never read this series, it doesn't matter. She's not in Las Vegas anymore. But I still recommend you read this series because the action was beautiful in almost every issue, and it was a fun inner storyline for Elektra. Good character-driven storyline. So Elektra issue 5 gets 4 stars, and that is number 5. Alright, so now we are moving on to number 4, which I'm so happy to see this series return, and that is Black Magick issue 6. This is one of my favorite indie titles. I loved it since issue 1, and I'm so glad it's back. And I guess it's coming back in August now. I thought we were going to get it monthly, but I guess it's every 2 months for now. But this is very much a one-shot issue, which I liked, because I think the writer and artist, Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott, knew it's been a while since we've read this book, and not everyone reads it in trade over and over again, especially with all the books that we get. So, especially, you know, for me, I haven't read the book since it came out. So, it was nice to have this kind of one-shot issue to learn more about Rowan Black, to get us settled as readers again to get into the present story. So it doesn't feel as jarring, and you get into the world again very easily. And you get to learn more about Rowan. Why is she such this numb character? and kind of jaded character in the present is because of what she's seen in the past, of her mother dying. Someone killed her. I don't know if she knows that, but we'll hopefully see that unfold. Her relationship with the Coven, her seeing her past lives and really having a traumatic experience after that. So a lot of interesting stuff, and of course the artwork is so gorgeous where you get to see this innocence with Rowan, but then develop to non-innocence where after she has this traumatic event. And the black and white noir tone works so well for this book. I loved it, and I am excited to see where it goes. Now, I was a little disappointed we weren't in the present, but again, I understood why they did it. So overall, I gave this 4 stars. Now, moving on to number 3, a book I officially put on my pull list for every month, which is Saga issue 44. And of course, the artwork by Fiona Staples is beautiful and great and clean. And the story was really good, where we get to see our main character dealing with her miscarriage, and she has Alana, and she has these magic powers, so that was interesting. But then we get to see that she's having this bad dream, and by the end, her son is still alive. So what's going on there? Is this a dream again? So definitely leaves you on an interesting cliffhanger. And of course the dialogue is awesome. I love the inner monologue throughout this book. I like that scene where it's like, I think Alana says, "Oh, we'll see," and then the monologue is, "Oh, we all know what it means when a parent says we'll see." That's definitely something that's always been great with sagas, how relatable that inner monologue is. So, Saga issue 44 definitely had some interesting story here, and I gave it a solid 4, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Wonder Woman issue 25, the last issue for Greg Rucka's run. And I'm going to be sad because I've never been a huge Wonder Woman fan, but I've been loving Rucka's run on Wonder Woman. It's gotten me more interested in the character. And with this issue, it's a really solid epilogue where we get to see, I love the Steve and Wonder Woman moments in the end where they're just happy. That was nice. We actually get to see their relationship. I feel like that's something we don't get to see, especially in recent years, with Diana and Steve. But it's also closing up a chapter for Veronica Cale, which was, you know, someone who was a great villain, because we actually saw her motives and understood her motives, so that made her an interesting villain. We got to see the aftermath of Cheetah, you know, Diana still being upset with Veronica Cale that she made Barbara Ann Cheetah again, so there's an interesting conflict there. But even the Justice League moment where Diana, you can see, is just upset, and obviously Diana doesn't get that upset like that usually, so the Justice League's like, what's going on? And then they realize she doesn't have her lasso, so I like that moment. So just an interesting epilogue in general. Beautiful art on both parts where we get the normal artist when it's not Liam Sharp, and then Liam Sharp's artwork, where it doesn't feel jarring because we've seen both these artists throughout most of the series. Liam Sharp since the beginning, and the other artists after Nicola Scott's run. So I liked it. I thought it was a solid issue. So I'm going to give Wonder Woman issue 25 4 stars. Now, number 1 was very easy for me this week, and that was Leaps and Bounds. Supergirl being super, issue 4. I love this book. I really hope it's not the end for Supergirl being super. I hope we get another chapter. And this was so good. I love the relationship between Dolly and Kara, and Dolly finally being in the know, even though she did know the whole time. And she said that, I was like, I've known for a very long time. I'm glad you opened up finally. So I love that. Artwork's so gorgeous. Colors is great. And I love the ending where Kara kind of grows up and she has to leave her hometown. She has to leave the people she loves to learn more about herself and go face to face with Superman, which was such a good ending and exactly when Superman should be in the story. I love that Supergirl being super was about Kara, because Supergirl story always, you know, winds with Superman's, you know? It always had to do with Superman. So it was nice to see an origin story that truly was just about Kara and then bring in Superman after. So that was great. So Supergirl being super, I loved it. It was a perfect ending. I loved the monologue, the dialogue, everything, the artwork. So Supergirl being super definitely didn't disappoint by the end. It is such an important series to read, especially if you like coming of age stories. So I gave that 5 stars, and that was my pick of the week. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about all the comics this week. What was your worst pick of the week, your best pick of the week, and everything in between. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below. There will be links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter, and don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And of course, next week I'll have another Comic Uno episode. So I will see you guys later. Bye.